Hi everybody, I'm Ron Cantor with a special election edition of our weekly videos. Next week, we're going to hold elections here in Israel again. We just had elections 2 years ago, but our prime minister, in seeking a stronger mandate from the Israeli electorate, dissolved his coalition, and he called for new elections. Now, yesterday, I posted on Facebook that I'm not sure who I'm voting for. People were shocked that I could even consider not voting for Bibi Netanyahu. Now, this is understandable. Bibi gave the speech of his life last week before Congress. It was bold, it was courageous, articulate, yes, even Churchillian, in his efforts to warn the world of a nuclear-armed Iran. How could anyone who loves Israel not want him to be their leader? Well, that's easy to say from Wisconsin, but things are just a little bit different here in Israel. If you understood our system of government and elections, then you might see patriotic Israelis could actually cast a vote for someone other than Netanyahu. Let's take a few minutes first to understand how completely different the Israeli system of government is from America's. In Israel, we don't have three equal branches of government. Our prime minister comes from the legislative body called the Knesset. The Knesset has 120 seats and represents more than a dozen different political parties. Did you get that? Not just Republicans and Democrats, but representatives from more than a dozen different parties. Several more parties actually run for the Knesset, such as the Green Leaf Party, promoting the legalization of marijuana, but you must break the 3.25% threshold, which amounts to 4 seats in the Knesset, in order to get in. No party has ever won an outright majority. The closest was when Golda Meir's party won just over 46% of the vote in 1969. That means that every eventual prime minister has to form a governing coalition with smaller parties to gain the minimum number of seats, 61. Once the election is over, the president, a procedural or ceremonial position, will ask the leader of the party that he thinks has the best chance of forming a lasting coalition to do so. In most cases, it's the party with the largest number of seats. However, in 2009, when Tzipi Livni's Kadima party bested Netanyahu's Likud by 1 seat, Bibi still became prime minister because it was unlikely that Tzipi Livni could find enough partners to form a coalition. Now imagine, you've just spent several months slinging mud left and right, saying that the other leaders and their parties are not fit to govern. They're socialists, they're communists, they hate women, they'll give up Jerusalem and your mother to the Palestinians. And now suddenly you have to sit down with these same leaders and peacefully form a government. What's worse is that the top leaders of each of these parties become cabinet ministers. In the U.S., the president is able to pick people from anywhere based on their expertise to fill positions like Secretary of State, Defense, or Commerce. In Israel, you have people filling positions with absolutely no experience or expertise. The most ridiculous example of this was in 2006, when Amir Peretz, a lifelong labor union leader, was appointed defense minister because his party came in second place. Now, because of our system of government, those who vote for smaller parties such as Yesh Atid, There's a Future, or Kulanu, All of Us, understand that these parties' leaders stand no chance of leading the nation as prime minister. Why then vote for a party that can't win? Because you believe your party could be part of the governing coalition and influence the next prime minister. For instance, in the last election, the smaller parties like Yesh Atid and the Jewish Home did very well. No one expected that their leaders, Yair Lapid or Naftali Bennett, would actually replace Netanyahu as prime minister, but they wanted them to influence the prime minister and to keep out of the government the ultra-Orthodox parties. Furthermore, these two young leaders promised sweeping economic changes to alleviate the pressure on the middle class. They promised radical changes regarding the Orthodox, namely that they would have to serve in the IDF, like every other Israeli, and they could no longer live on welfare, but needed to get jobs. One thing you might not know about Israel is that the ultra-Orthodox, until very recently, were exempt from service in the army. In addition, the vast majority live on welfare and donations, so they can study the Talmud all day long while the rest of us Israelis work to support them. Netanyahu did not want to change these laws, but preferred to have the Orthodox parties in his government. Why? Very simple. They have no political agenda other than to keep getting support for their activities. As long as they were getting huge subsidies from the government, they would vote any way Bibi wanted them to. But in the last election, Bibi could not form a coalition without Bennett and Lapid, and they stood strong that they would not serve in a coalition that did not change the laws regarding the Orthodox. Thus, the Orthodox, losing that which was most dear to them, would not join the coalition, creating one of the only coalitions in the history of Israel without Orthodox parties. Now, for those who cannot understand why I might not vote for Netanyahu, here's what you need to understand. Netanyahu wants to bring the Orthodox back into his government and get rid of Lapid. That means that all the righteous changes regarding the Orthodox will most likely be reversed. Secondly, the Likud party has been unwilling to challenge the powerful monopolies and bureaucracies in Israel. For instance, just a few companies control virtually all of the food industry in Israel and continually raise prices because we have no other option. That's called a monopoly, and it's illegal in America. For a builder to build an apartment building in Israel, it takes about 13 years of slicing through red tape with a butter knife. We have a housing crisis in Israel, and it's only going to get worse as more and more Jews come back to the Holy Land. Now, let me be clear. I have little doubt that Benjamin Netanyahu will continue to be the prime minister, and I want him to continue as prime minister. My hope is that smaller parties with backgrounds in economics will be brought into the next coalition, preferably without the Orthodox parties, to make the changes needed for a growing, thriving startup nation. So you see, it's possible to have a strong prime minister like Bibi willing to confront Iran, even the president of the United States of America, and at the same time make economic reforms that ensure our prosperity. Some asked if I was going to choose economics over security. Well, the answer is no. What good is a house if you get nuked? I'm choosing both. The truth is, I haven't made up my mind who I'm voting for. We've still got one more week before elections. However, there is one thing that I think all of us can agree on, and that is to pray for God's will to be done in this nation. Thanks so much, and shalom from Tel Aviv.